My childhood wasn't very happy. I became an orphan at age 9, and well, at that time, my mother passed away in September of 35, and my dad was a drunk, and on the day of her funeral, he got drunk and got mean and nasty, and they hauled him off to jail, and we never seen him or heard from him again forever. And then years later, this nephew worked on this ancestry thing, and he found his grave in Phoenix, and he'd been living in a poorhouse, they called it in those days.
And so what became of you that day when you were 9 years old?
Well, that was in September, so school was about to start. We moved from Natarita to Nucla, and I started my 5th grade in Nucla. And my sister Jeanette was a junior in high school, and she became head of the household during the week. And then the brother that was paying the rent on the house, he would be there on weekends. Trying to think. Then in 36, when school was out in 36, Jeanette went to Urban and got a job. And in the meantime, Sister Peggy had got mad at Jeanette and left. And then Bob got mad and left. So that left me and Jesse. And they found a place for Jesse and then left me there in the old house that summer by myself. And that summer I got acquainted with Ned Cooper, who the Cooper clan was all over the Nucla area there. And I was able to hook up with them and think I was doing some good by helping them mow hay.
Tell me about the cow that you had.
Well, in 36, when I was living by myself, we had this milk cow. And it was, I could go to the store and charge food if it needed be. So I charged bread, and I ate bread and milk all summer. But every morning I would milk the cow and turn her out in the streets in Nucla. And that evening I'd go wandering around and find her and bring her back to the corral and, of course, milk her. And then in the morning I'd milk her again and turn her out in the street. And that was my way of life for that summer.
And you were 9.
Let's see, that was 35. Yeah, I was, 36. 36, I was 10.
10. Yeah. And so then you worked in the hay fields with Ned and family.
And then we went from, they called it Second Park. They had a hay field out there. We went from there to Dry Park and put up the hay there. And went to Ute and put up the hay there. And then, I can't remember how, but I got back to Nucla from there. And that's where I spent the rest of the summer by myself.
What did you do to pass the time?
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
And another thing that bothers me is about washing clothes. I don't ever remember washing any clothes. I must have wore the same clothes all summer.
Oh my goodness. Tell me about the times when your dad was alive and you went on those trips with him.
Well, he was a drunk, and all he cared about was the next drink. And there's bootleggers over in Disappointment, and he would make me go with him so I could take care of the horses for him. And on the way, he would shoot rabbits and sage hens, and I'd have to get off and pick them up. And about the time I'd reach down to get hold of them, they'd give a fatal flop and scare me to death. But anyway, that was food to take along to these where the bootleggers were, and we'd finally get there. And this one family had a son about 2 years older than I. They'd saddle up horses and give us a note and send us to this, tell us to go see this so-and-so and give him this note. And then we just sat there on the horses, and pretty soon they'd come back and stuff a package wrapped in newspapers in a sack on behind each saddle. And we'd go back, and my dad and this other guy would see how drunk they could get.
And you'd be camping out in Disappointment Valley?
He had this, it was a two-wheel cart wagon thing. We had a bed in it, and that's what we slept in.
And so you would just go out and he'd be on these drunks, and then eventually you'd come back to Nuclear Natarita.
Natarita, Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how come he picked you out of all the brothers and sisters?
I don't know. I was scared of him, and whatever he said, I done. He and Brother Bob had troubles all the time because Bob didn't do what he told him to do. So it was left up to me, and I was scared not to go with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what year it was, but the last time he made that trip, somehow we sensed that he was getting ready to do that. So through some kids, friends, I hid out down by the river all day long, waiting for him to leave, and he finally left by himself. So that was the last trip that I can remember he made.
And you didn't have to go with him
that time.
I
didn't have to go.
Yeah. Then you just stayed in Nuclear through schooling, your schooling.
No, I went through the 6th grade in Nuclear, and then went back to Natarita for the 7th grade, then back to Nuclear for the 8th grade. That's the year I lived at the Gibbs Ranch, and I had to get up at 4 in the morning to get the chores all done before I could go to school. And that year I, of course, got up at 4, and I would get to school just in time, and then when school was out, I hot-footed home to start chores again. And quite often I would have to carry a lantern out with me finishing up the chores at night. But in the meantime, I would have to dry the dishes for Nada, the daughter, before I could go finish my chores.
So you stayed there, and in exchange you would do the chores for them, and they took care of you?
I was paying my board and room. In other words, I was already doing my work and career.
Yeah. Yeah.
8th grade didn't. Well, when school was out from the 8th grade, I was going to leave, and he told me if I would stay, he'd give me $1 a day. So that was really big money in my book. So after about a month, I asked him for some money, and he gave me $1. And every Saturday after that, during the summer, he'd give me $1. And it was getting along close to school time, and I asked him for some money to get some school clothes, and I didn't have any more coming because I'd been working for $1 a week, not $1 a day.
Oh, no.
So I packed up what little bit of stuff I had, and I left. And I don't remember how it happened, but that's how I wound up living with Emerson and Zella Williams.
Oh.
I lived with them twice, but at that time, Emerson didn't have a job, and it was soon thereafter he'd come up with a job over in Sinbad, where Zella was from, who was working for her folks, is what it was. So they left me there in that house and made arrangements for me to eat with the people directly behind. So that wasn't very long, and a guy named Swede Lewis rented this Williams house where I was already living. I was sleeping out on the screen porch. It was a 1-bedroom house, and they had 3 kids. And I can't remember where the 3 kids slept, but anyway, I wound up then living with the Lewises.
Oh my goodness.
Then it was from there that I went to that mining camp with Joe Dandy in East Paradox. And that fall, when school started, on the road down there, of course, it was just a dirt road down through the valley, but we had a box type thing set up there that I could put a bicycle in and lock it for the day, and I could ride it into the foot of the hill where there was an ore bin, and then I'd lock it up to the ore bin at night. Then I climbed up the hill to get home, and then get up in the morning and reverse that.
Oh my goodness.
And that, the mail carrier, he carried mail, or whole mail. He picked it up from what they call the Mother Goose, or Galloping Goose in Placerville. Mm-hmm. That there was a rail come over Dallas Divide, and so he picked up the mail there, and then he got all the little towns coming down all the way down to Paradox. Well, that's what we rode to high school, and he never knew what time of day the mail would get into Placerville. Sometimes it'd be way late. We'd be way late at getting out of Nuclear when school was out. That fall, we had a lot of rain, and the county had built a new little bridge across the wash down in East Paradox. And this one day we were heading down the valley, and we got just to the bridge, and that old loose dirt and it rained in it. The pickup got onto the bridge and then he just dropped
Oh.
back. And the wheels was against the bridge. And in Paradox, there was no, down in the valley, there was no trees. So we couldn't find anything to pry it up or whatever. But I don't remember how we finally got it lifted up, but he had 2 sacks of 100-pound sacks of wheat in the back he was hauling for somebody in Paradox. We stuffed them under the rear wheels as we got it jacked up. He got in and he wound her up and he jerked his foot off the clutch and the wheels spun and wheat flew for 40 miles. But anyway, we got it up on the bridge.
Oh my gosh.
But that night, I just got home in time to eat breakfast and turn around and head back down the hill to meet the mail station.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember how you felt in those years being all on your own?
I don't think there was ever a thought. I was just daily survival. Is all I can remember about it. But then at about Christmas time, my life started to get better because my brother Bill had gotten married in the fall, and he bought a house in Nuclear, and he was running he owned a service station, and he came to the Joe Dandy. I can remember, and he climbed up that hill and got me, and that's when my life started getting better because I moved in with him, and they had the house they bought had a back porch, screened-in porch, and that was my bedroom. But from then on, I stayed with him then through high school.
What made you keep going to school?
I don't know that, Chelsea, but I had in the back of my mind that you're supposed to go to high school, but then go to work.
So it was just sort of the order of things for you. So you graduated then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't forget your light bulb story.
Oh. Let's see. I'm trying to remember what period of time that was. My sister Helen was working in Yerevan at the boarding house, and she had a room on the second floor. And I don't remember why I was there, but it was maybe at second or third grade at the time. I was in her room, she was at work, and there was this thing hanging from the ceiling and this bulb on the end of it, and this little chain. I didn't know what it was. I reached up and I took hold of that chain and pulled it, and that light come on and just scared me to death. So that was my introduction to electricity.
Because before that you used lanterns and
Oh yeah, all
candles.
we had was kerosene lamps.
Oh my goodness, I never even would have thought that you knew a time without electricity.
In the air of the kerosene lamp, if you went from one room to another for light at night, you carried a kerosene lamp with you.
Oh, okay. Oh my gosh. I thought, what in the world is this? How funny.
That had to make my eyes pop right out of my head when that thing came on.
Oh my goodness. So you were living with Bill in high school, and you started to get a sense of normalcy in your life.
He had the service station, and of course I had to work at the service station to pay my keep. And he had both me and my sister Jessie living with him, and her and I both worked at the station. And Jessie done a lot of the housework too. I was trying to think. Well, it had been the last 3 years of high school I was with Bill, and then I got out of high school in '43, and then in February '44, I wound up in the Navy.
Was that a draft that
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
And I spent a little over 2 years in the Navy, and then got back to Nuclear afterwards. Still lived with Bill, and in high school then, I knew Judy. She was a year behind me, but we didn't date. But we would be in the same groups of kids, off and on, all through high school. And when I got home from the Navy, and I don't know why, she was working in a bank in Grand Junction. And it wasn't long thereafter that she quit that job and went back home, and she went to work in the office of the power company. And it was thereafter that we started dating. We went together for a little over a year, then we got married in '47.
What was it about her that made you fall in love with her?
She was just a neat person. We seemed to have a lot of common thoughts, I guess. But the dating primarily was Saturday night dances. Once in a while there was a movie, but I didn't like movies. When I would go with her, a lot of times I'd wind up asleep in the movie.
You got married in the yard at her parents' house?
We got married at the church,
Oh,
but the reception was out at the ranch in the yard.
and when was the wedding? What time of year?
In June.
In June. Oh, yeah, that was nice. So was that the little white church in Nucla where you got married? Yeah.
Congregational church, they called it.
Oh.
I even had to borrow a suit to get married.
Oh, that's funny. And then what did you do, the two of you?
I was working for the Bureau of Reclamation, which was a government agency, for $1 an hour, or $1 a day, I'm sorry. And soon thereafter, I quit that job and took a job of helping on a core drilling for 92 cents because I could work Saturdays and get overtime. But then it wasn't long after that that I worked up to being a driller with a rig of my own and moved up to $1.10 an hour per day. They had a bonus program in that drilling that we got 50 cents a foot for every foot over 50-foot average in the day. And I had a good helper, and when we started that thing in the morning, we meant for it to go down in the ground. We were beating that 50 foot a day just day in and day out. In reality, then we made some pretty good money on bonus.
Where was this drilling rig?
Started out in Long Park. I went to work helping Tom Pewterball, who was a cousin to Judy by marriage. And within about 6 weeks, I got a drill of my own. And then we went from there to on top of Slick Rock and spent a bunch of time drilling there. Oh, that's where we were living, camping, so to speak, and working all the time. But Judy and this other guy's wife came up with a washboard and a wash tub, and I came home from drilling one day, and Judy was so proud that she'd washed our clothes on the washboard. So I jumped on her with both feet, and I didn't ever want to see her do that again. Because that's the vision that I had of my mother.
Oh.
Washing clothes on the washboard, try to put food on the table. And so anyway, she found out that that wasn't very good.
So you wanted better for her,
Yeah.
essentially, and you didn't want her to live that life.
No.
And so yeah. Did she understand that, or was she
Yeah.
hurt?
She figured it out pretty quick.
Oh.
I told her we had a car and there was laundromats in Dove Creek. She could take clothes to Dove Creek and go to the laundromat. So that's what she done after that.
Oh. Wow. I guess I didn't know about the drilling part of your life. I don't know if I ever heard those stories
Yeah.
before.
It was a good time of our life. We saved quite a little money, but then Brother Glenn from California came there to go deer hunting, and he talked me into going to California and going to work for his company, which was heat treating metals, hardening them as primarily, and it was a hot, dirty job. So I worked there about 6 weeks, and they made me lead man of the crew. And then about 6 weeks after that, they made me foreman of the whole. There was 3 different big steel buildings that had people working in all of them. And then that would have been in 51. In 53, one of the partners caught me out in the yard and asked me how I'd like to go to San Diego and be the manager of their new plant. I told him if he thought I could handle it, I was ready to go. So that's how we wound up in San Diego.
And you were in LA before, right? Yeah.
And that San Diego plant never did get up to doing what they visualized for it. But I'd done that till 73.
So you were there a long time at that plant. So you were leading how many people as the manager?
Oh, we'd have anywhere from 4 to 8. Oh, depending on business.
And you were the boss.
And I was the boss.
Do you think that you always advance so quickly because of your work ethic and just your reliability and that kind of thing?
Everywhere I went or done, I just let my work speak for itself. And that's what got me the promotions. And people that need to know could see that. I had probably one of the best work ethics of anybody was ever around. Just like when we was in this drilling, we had 3 rigs in the group, and our bonus had to be divided between the 3 rigs. Well, there was times one of these rigs wouldn't make any bonus. And my rig might make $1,500 in the month, but that's just the way it worked out.
So the kids were both born, well, I guess Earl was born in LA, right?
Well, they were both born in Pasadena.
Oh, okay.
And the reason Earl was born in Pasadena, we were already living in San Diego, but Judy wanted to have the same doctor she had for Deborah, so she went to LA and stayed with a friend till Earl was born.
So were you not there when he was born?
No, I was working in San Diego. And Judy had made arrangements with her mother to come and stay with me and Deborah while she was in LA.
Okay, so her mom was there and keeping care of Deborah. And then how long after Earl was born did she come back?
Right away.
Right away.
Yeah.
Interesting. You all lived in California, in San Diego until
73.
73.
And that's when I got tired of that dirty heat treating, and I took my camper and went to Las Vegas and entered a air conditioning school, and I took that school, and then that's how I wound up in the ice business, because refrigeration and air conditioning is one and the same.
So then you were cold all the time. And so Las Vegas, you moved the family out there after you got a job, after you got through school?
Well, I really didn't have a job yet when I got Judy over there. And incidentally, at that same time, she'd contacted what they call valley fever. And it was something new, and nobody knew how to treat it. And she would get big sores on her legs, and it was hard for her to walk. But anyway, got her to Las Vegas, and we didn't have any insurance. But she would go to the doctor, and they'd take blood samples and send it to UC Davis for him to work with. But finally it got to where we couldn't afford having that blood test. And I don't remember, she just finally recovered from it. And I don't know if they ever did really figure out what caused it, but they called it valley fever. And they think she contacted it from Earl. He was into this old stuff, what am I trying to say? Digging in the dirt.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, they think that she contacted it from his clothes, from these digs that he was in, because he had it mild.
That makes sense. Some people get like ringworm and that kind of stuff from digging in the dirt or, yeah. Huh. So she had that for a long time then.
Yeah, 6 or 8 months. I don't remember exactly.
You lived in Vegas. Eventually you got the job with Ready Ice, right?
Yeah. I knew a guy in Las Vegas. He was from Nucla, but he worked with a guy in Beatty, Nevada, who was now the manager of the ice plant in Nucla. So he suggested I go and talk to him, and that's how I got that job to start with. Jim Backus was his name. He was a cousin to my brother Bill's wife.
So then when you were doing these jobs, did Judy ever work?
She worked about 10 years in a bank at the time we were in Las Vegas. But that's really the only steady work she done outside the home while we were married. She about 10 years she worked in the bank.
Was that when the kids were already in school then?
They were already out of school then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember for sure what year the kids graduated, but I think Earl was about 72, so Deborah would have been about 69.
Yeah. Oh, and so they were out, gone then, and so I see. You were in Vegas, pretty soon started having grandkids, somewhere in the early 80s.
82.
82 was Jake. And so then pretty soon everybody started to come to visit,
Yeah.
because I can remember 1 or 2 times being in Las Vegas. I must have been young, maybe 7 or something like that. We came there when you were there, and we went to Circus.
Yeah. All kids had to go there.
Yep. And
I
had
guess-
Thanksgiving.
I guess they still got it going.
I think so. Must have redone it or whatever, but I haven't been there since then, probably.
It's part of MGM.
Oh, okay.
MGM got, I don't know how many casinos, hotels that they own now, but it must be 6 or 7.
So then after Las Vegas, how long did you live there?
Was there about 22 years.
Oh my gosh. Came back to Colorado?
We was there a little over 4 years when then we moved here to Mesquite.
When was the time and all of that where you had the RV and you went on your big adventures with?
It was a truck camper
Oh, okay.
that we got first, and we were still in San Diego.
Oh,
It primarily, we got it because of the dune buggy. We hooked the dune buggy on behind on a trailer and go to the dunes over by Yuma. So we had a place to sleep. But prior to that, we just had a pickup. And Judy and I would sleep on mats in the back of the truck, and the kids had the cots. One morning we woke up and there was Sidewinder tracks under the kids' cots.
oh my gosh. Guess they made it through.
But then after that, when we got the camper, there was room for them to sleep inside. We took the bed up over the cab, and then the table area made into a bed. And they were small enough, I guess, then that they could sleep together.
And was that sort of your weekend thing that you would all do?
Primarily holiday weekend. Because just a weekend wasn't hardly worth it, because at least a 4-hour drive to get there.
Oh, I see. And then when you never really retired. I guess you're finally retired now, but didn't you go all over with the camper to Alaska and Texas and?
After I'm trying to think what year, we bought a 5th wheel. I can't remember for sure what year, but it was in '86 that we made the Alaska trip. And there was Judy and I and 3 other couples in the group that we spent the whole summer touring Alaska, and that was '86.
Did you like that?
Had a great time,
Yeah.
but it seemed like I was always having a flat tire.
Oh,
That trip between the truck and the trailer, I bet I had 6 flat tires.
oh man. And then you made it somehow down to Texas after
Yeah.
that.
We still had the 5th wheel because I pulled it down there, and that's what we lived in down there. I knew this guy from Ready Ice. He was the manager of an ice plant in El Paso, and I spent 2 consecutive summers down there working for them. And of course Judy went along, and that's when she was into making quilts. So we had her sewing machine in the trailer with us. She worked quilts while I worked at the ice plant.
The truck got stolen, right?
Yeah, the second season down there, I was of course doing all refrigeration and maintenance. And I'd been out on a call, and I come back to the plant, and I parked my truck just 50 feet into the building. I could see my truck from where I was working, and I hadn't been there 5 minutes, and I thought of a tool I needed out of the truck. So I walked out to get it, and the truck was gone. Just like that.
Whatever became of it?
Oh, we had no more information on it, but within minutes it would have been across the Mexican border.
And so that was it. So did you have insurance to help you get another one,
No,
or were you just...
Just recently I'd canceled the insurance because the truck was getting old enough that it wasn't really worthwhile to pay the insurance. So I didn't get nothing out of it.
Oh. So you had to start over?
Yeah. And then soon thereafter, my friend Tom and Kitty Bigland were on a trip back east somewhere. And they came through El Paso. And so I got in with them on their way home and borrowed his truck to go back to El Paso and get my trailer.
Oh my goodness.
So then soon after that, I went ahead and sold the trailer because I didn't have any way to pull it.
How many states did you get to? Do you remember?
We missed Georgia, and we missed the New England states north of New York. We missed North Dakota, but we had a footprint in the rest of them.
Have you ever left the country? Oh, well, you were in the Navy.
Yeah.
So that was...
Yeah,
Yep.
that would be the only time.
Did Aunt Judy ever leave the country?
No.
No?
Well, other than going through Canada when we went on our trip.
Did she ever go to Cabo with Deborah?
Seems like her and I went with them one time, but I can't remember for sure.
Yeah. So you lived in Colorado in great grandma's house for 4 years. And what made you do that move from Las Vegas to there?
That's when we sold our house in Las Vegas. And the idea was to go back there and live in her house. And during my retirement, I'd just do work, whatever I could for your granddad. And so that's what we were doing. And finally, I got pretty disgusted with the operation between your granddad and his son Tim. It just kind of got to me. And then, don't take this literally, but your granddad got to telling her, come over and do this and that for your grandma. And I didn't like that. And so we were talking one day, and she says, I think we ought to go somewhere closer to the kids. So in the meantime, we made a trip through here going to Deborah's for Thanksgiving. We stopped here in Mesquite, and we looked at these houses. And on the way back, she says, I think we ought to buy a house there. So we bought this house.
Oh my gosh. So what year was that?
That would have been 1998.
Okay. So when you were in Nucla, I was in middle school then, because I started high school in 97, 98. So yeah, those were good times. Then you moved here, bought this house, and then you were kind of in between.
That's fine.
Then you were in between California and Colorado, so yeah.
Yeah. We were close enough we could go see the kids. And of course Earl was in Las Vegas.
So that's good. And then for years, people just come here and visit you.
This is a good location for people traveling through that would stop and say hello. One I think of offhand is Steve Blair and his wife. They were in Las Vegas and they stopped by and visited a while. Another time was Steve's daughter, who they were vacationing in Las Vegas, and they came out and visited. And incidentally, they were here this one day, and she says, I want to have some of your hotcakes. I said, how did you know about my hotcakes? She says, Chelsea told me.
Yeah, they're infamous.
So anyway, they came back the next day for hotcakes.
Oh, that's funny.
And I'm trying to think who. I can't remember right offhand now, but there was other people that stopped here. And then in later years, Dean Blair, they stopped here several times. We had a big Thanksgiving here. I believe it was the first year we were here, which would have been '99. I borrowed a pickup from a friend that had a camper on it, and Dean was going to school in Provo. So he was here for the Thanksgiving. He slept in that camper. No, that was in Las Vegas when that happened. Yeah, that was in Las Vegas when that happened.
I think I was there.
But the first Thanksgiving here, we rented a table and turned the other table and put the table there and then a card table. We had 25 people out there for Thanksgiving dinner.
I think I was there too. And there was more than one of those, I think, where we had tables and people everywhere. And people just like to be with you and Aunt Judy. It just is a calm place.
Prior to that, there was a Thanksgiving or two in Logan, Utah.
Yep.
Or Logan, New Mexico. You were there once,
Yep.
I remember.
Yep, I was there. There was, even Chris might have been there one time. I feel like they went bird hunting.
Yeah, we went duck hunting.
And then here, we would go to the shooting range.
Yeah.
That was a tradition that we had. Why do you think people would come at Thanksgiving? What was the...
I don't know. Maybe they were given an invitation. I just can't remember.
Yeah.
It was a gathering point.
It was. Yeah, it still kind of seems to be the thing. Probably this year, the Coopers will head this way, I would imagine.
Yeah. Now we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Well,
If I'm still here at Thanksgiving and you're wanting to do something and get some people together for a meal here, why, feel free to do it.
okay. Well, thank you for sharing your life story, and it's a good one. I think you said yesterday that you had a good life and you felt...
Yeah, I really can't think of anything I'd change. There were some bad places, but that goes with the life.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Gordon was a special person, and may you take his stories and apply them to your life, whether it's through growing a beautiful garden, cooking delicious hotcakes for your family, or just simply doing the right thing in your everyday life. Rest in peace, Gordon.